morning, YouTube. It's a beautiful, rainy, drizzly day here in northeast Tennessee, late November. In fact, I believe it's the last day of November. And we've got an unusual install, an actual easy one, I guess, I hope. This is a house a customer of mine bought to fix up and rent out. He got it at auction, probably for not much more than I'm charging him for the heat pump. But when he first bought it, he had someone else that was doing his heating in there, and they come in and ran the ductwork for a system. And I don't think they're in business any longer, so he asked me if I'd be interested in finishing it up. So I stopped by and looked at it, and what I'm going to do is I'll set a new air handler right here under this trunk duct they put in. This is a 14-inch flex, bag of flex they've got sitting here. I'm going to take that out and make a return up here that's 16 inches to come down to my unit. Electrical panels right back over there. It's got plenty of breakers because the house used to have baseboard heat. The outdoor unit's going to set just outside of this window on the uphill side, so the line set's not going to be very long. All in all, I think it'll be a pretty easy job, so I'm going to get started on it. I started work before I got here by getting the air handler somewhat ready to set over here under the trunk duct, so I'm going to get it out. I brought a dolly. I'll roll it over and set it in place and see what we got. Okay, there's how I'm going to set the unit. This duct's 20 inches wide. I'll cut this insulation back. I can feel there's a joint right here, and then there's one 47 inches down. So I should be in a good spot to cut the hole. What I'm going to try to do, I've got a 16-inch takeoff here coming out of my plenum box. I'm going to, I'll put a 16-inch 90 and then come straight up to whatever I build upstairs here. As far as from here up to the existing trunk duct, I made this transition. It'll sit on top of the unit, come up and flare out in each direction. This is just a piece of scrap I bent. I'll actually screw this up in the top of the trunk duct to help kick the air both directions. So hopefully that'll fit okay, and I'll have some of my work already done. So for now I'm going to go up and cut this 14-inch flex loose and get it out of my way so I'm not tripping over it. And we'll look up there and see what they've got. Here's what they've done up here. They cut a hole through the wall. I guess they were wanting the owner just to frame in around this, box it in. Of course, most of the codes now don't allow you to use framing as a chase, so I usually try just to do a complete metal setup now where I don't have any wood in my ductwork. Looks like they just screwed this flex, pulled it up through a hole and screwed it down, so that shouldn't be too hard to take out. I'll go ahead and pull the screws and tape off of this and drop it down. Well, 20 screws later, and looks like one 8-penny nail for some reason. She's free. I will come up with some way to make me a transition fitting here that'll go to 16-inch round and down to the unit, and then I'll build an actual plenum box for the filter. And when you look inside of it, you'll see all metal. You won't see any wood. So I'll measure that up before I leave and try to make it in my shop. Okay, I cut the insulation back and marked where I want to cut the rectangle hole for my new plenum. However, always measure twice and cut once, because the first time I did it I missed. I got to thinking about something else. What I want the center of my return down here at the bottom of the unit to be right here in the center of this hole upstairs. So I based everything on this dimension here, but I got backwards first time I measured, so I've corrected it, and I will cut the hole now. I'll start my hole with this step bit over in one corner, and I will wear safety glasses since I'm over my head. Probably should wear them all the time. Yeah, it gives me a place to start. And I use these little $20 Chicago shears from, I guess, Harbor Freight. I've had them for several years, and they still going strong. I'm sure if you used them all the time every day, they'd probably wear out quick, but so far they've been worth every dime. Okay, and then we had a hole. Watch out for little birds like that. They'll make you a quart low real quick. You know, you wonder about businesses when they come in and do something like this, and then by the time they get around to putting in the heat pump, they're out of business, and you might wonder why. You know, usually it's probably you're not pricing your work high enough, or possibly you just don't take pride in your work. I hope that shows up on camera, but you can see there's a 4-inch step between pieces of duct there, and the transition is entirely made out of duct tape, not even the good stuff. Fortunately, all of this duct happens to be in the the basement, which is going to need a little warmth down here anyway, because it's going to have a washer and a dryer and whatnot, so I'm not going to worry about it on this job. But if this had been in an attic, imagine how much air loss you'd have through something like that, especially as that tape gets old. If you're going to do something, at least try to do it right. And I slipped the unit. I cut the insulation here so I could pick it up, but slip the unit up underneath and start screwing it to it, and I'll seal this, although after seeing that last piece of duct, it kind of makes you think I might have wasted my time on this other duct mastic. But again, if you're going to do it right. So I'll get this screwed up and sealed up and leveled up and start running the electrical. Okay, I've got it all the supply buttoned up and mastic sealed up good. I'll let that dry. I didn't bring any insulation with me today. I'll have to insulate this as well as whatever I build up here. So I'm going to go ahead and get my wiring run over here. I started buying this 6'2" in 125-foot rolls. It's actually a little cheaper than buying it cut. And if I try to measure and then go get a cut piece, I'm always scared and add 5 feet, and at the end I wind up with 6 or 7 foot piece left over, and that stuff's almost $1 a foot. So very quickly you add up to a pizza's worth of wire just laying around. So I'll get that tied in over there at the panel, brought around. I went ahead and put the heat kit and everything in this at the shop, so I'll be able to go ahead and make the final connections here. And then I may jump up there and get me a thermostat wire ran up above where the return's going to go and get it pulled down through the wall. And then I'll have to try to get some power over here to where we're going to set the condensing unit outside. Okay, I got my measurements on what I need to make for upstairs and for my return here. I got the power run into the unit, got me 110 volts here for my condensate pump, and I've got my wire ran outside for my condensing unit. They're putting siding on the house. They've got the soffit done and started putting insulation coming down, so I'm going to talk to them and see if they can't jump over here and do the area where I'm going to be putting the heat pump next, so that they won't be climbing around on top of anything. I didn't mount the disconnect either, because they'll be putting siding on the house and I can just mount it over top of the siding. So I'm going to call it a day. May go home and work on some sheet metal, but I'll be back tomorrow. Okay, I'm here in my, well, what used to be my garage. It's now kind of my shop full of all sorts of stuff, some good and some not. And I'm going to start making the return for this job. As we looked on the site, we got 14 inches up between the joists. I don't want to cut any joist, but I want a 16-inch return down to the unit. So what I'll do is take one of these metal tab-in 16-inch takeoffs, and I will squash it, in effect oval it to where it will fit within the 14-inch space I'm confined to, and still be able to slip the 16-inch duct on. Since I've got 14 inches, I'm probably not going to make this thing any wider than 13 to give me a little bit of a lip on my box to make it strong. So the circumference of the 16-inch takeoff is 50, roughly 50 1/4 inches. That's just taking the diameter times pi. If this is 14 inches wide and I want to put a circle on both ends, and I want to leave a little lip, I'm going to make the circle 13, which times pi is 40.84 inches. That leaves me a little over 9 inches. So I'm going to make the straight segments 4 3/4 inches on each side. So round that up to 5. 5 plus the 13-inch circle I'm going to be adding to it. It's going to be 18 inches of length that we're going to need. You know, of course, it used to be 16. When we squashed it, we made it wider, so now it's 18. And I'm going to add 1 inch to that to give me a little bit of strength on both ends. I'm concerned about space. I don't want to make this thing any bigger than I have to, so if I have to trim these little tabs off or bend them or something, I will when the time comes. So bottom line is, the square that we're going to see between the joists that's going to have this takeoff in it is going to wind up being 14 by 19 inches. The depth down is 8 inches from the floor down to where I want this bottom to be. So I'm going to need a wing on both sides of this thing so I can fold it up. I'm going to make this out of three pieces, one major piece and then an end cap on both ends. So I basically done all my dimensions, come over here and laid it out. I just drew it with a Sharpie. Real metal people would use a scratch off so you wouldn't have all these marks, but they wouldn't show up on camera, and it's all going to be hidden anyway. So what I'm going to do, I've not laid the hoe out yet. I'll wait until I cut this and bend it so I've got something stable to set up on top, because I'll cut it using my hole cutter and shears to make the straight edges and the curves on both ends. So what I'm going to do is get busy cutting this out, and then when I get it cut out as a blank, I'll show it to you before I start bending on it. Okay, here's my blank, and where I had room, rather than cut the metal out, if you've got room to bend up a lip, it always makes it stronger and look better in the end. So I just took a piece of S-Lock and a marker. You usually have to cover up your line to do it, but make you a little 1-inch lip that you can fold up, which will make the whole thing more rigid. One thing I bought and I really like is these notchers. These actually are Malcos. They cut 1 inch deep rather than the old ones that were about 13/16 or something, which the inch deep notches work real good with these Malco benders that are made to notch or actually bend 1 inch. So we can take I've got all my corners notched now, so I'm basically ready to start folding this piece. I bought this little 48-inch brake at Northern, not very expensive purchase. I think it's $300 or $400, but I've used it a lot. If you don't have a brake, you can still bend deeper boxes like this using something like this Hensler bender. Got this for my birthday, and you can slip it over and make the bend on anything up to a little over 3 foot wide, so it would work great on something this size. But since I'm here in the shop and I have this brake, I'll just go ahead and use it to make those bends. ordinarily on something like this, I would cross break it. However, this is a pretty tight hole this one's going up into, so I don't want to make the sides bulge out any more than I have to. And the whole darn bottom's pretty much going to be missing here in a minute, so I'm not cross breaking this particular piece. And again, I've got these little Malco hand seamers. See how they'll just slip right on. And I got them in what, 12, 18, and 24 inches. That usually works for about most things, because what I can start doing, this is 14 inches wide. I can just start bending on this side a little bit, slide it over, bend the other side, keep sliding it back and forth and get a nice crisp seam, and I will bend it until it matches this line we see right here on the side. Again, it gives it quite a bit of rigidity anytime you put a bend on a piece of metal. So I'll bend these sides up or down and do the same thing on this end. So then with everything bent on this piece, we have our 8 inches height from here to here. We got 14 inches where it sticks up through the floor. We have a 2-inch offset, which is used to clear that ledger board on the center beam of the home. And then we have our 20 inches deep here, or 19 inches, which will allow us to put in our oval takeoff. So what's left for this box is a piece here, which will be a simple rectangle with the lip bent up a little bit on this end. And same thing on this end, just a simple rectangle. And I'll fold it up to where it'll stick through the floor as well. My intent is to put this piece in first and actually probably drive some roofing tacks into the plywood floor or the joist, whichever. And then the upstairs piece, the actual plenum that the return box, what you'll see if you look back into it after you take the filter out, will actually slip down inside of this all the way around. So that's my plan. We'll see if it works. When you're building any kind of transition, some of the numbers can get daunting. The best thing to do is always lay out the parallel sides first, if you will. You know, for instance, I knew I needed this to be 8 inches tall, so I laid it out that way and drew the offsets on here just based on what I needed. So now I can actually measure the physical piece to see what this distance is instead of trying to use geometry or something. So I've got I think 8 1/4 on this side and probably about 10 3/4, maybe a little heavy on this side. So I've cut I had a piece of scrap laying here that was big enough to make the smaller end. And what I will do is go ahead, since this is not going to be touching anything and it's, you know, floppy, I'll go ahead and cross break it, and I'll do the same on the end. And so here's our one end cap. What I'll end up doing, I'll just clamp it with these little vice grips and run some little 1/2-inch zip-in screws in it. If you're making something you want to be pretty, I guess you could pop rivet it, or people that do this for a living usually have a little spot welder, or if when they have to make a seam like that, a lot of them will actually make a seam on a like a Pittsburgh seam or something, and put the ends together, which is a very nice way to do it. I just don't have that kind of equipment. So I clamped it right here and got a screw into the bend on the other side on this other piece of metal. I need to put a screw down here, but I don't have a clamp that long. So as long as you can back it up with something when you screw it, you can usually get it pretty flat. I don't have a block of wood laying around, but I've got this wooden hammer handle, and as you can see, I've used it before. So I'll stick the hammer in here against the seam, the handle of it, and run my screw in either close to the handle or even into the handle. Once I get the hole through, I can back it up if I need to and run the screw back in again. Okay, it's a box, and I'll seal these seams either with mastic tape or mastic sealant. But first, I'm going to cut the hole in the bottom for the oval 16-inch takeoff we're going to put in. I found the center of it along the long axis, I put the roughly 4 3/4 inches between the two center points of my 13-inch circle, and I've set my hole cutter on 13 inches. So what I'll do is pop a hole right here and right here, stick the hole cutter in it, cut the two half circles, and then I'll finish up the two little 4 3/4 inch straight sides on each side with 10 snips. Okay, so I've got the two half circles cut. I'll just take a straight edge, make a mark down those sides, and snip the rest of it out with 10 snips. And we have an oval shaped hole. Next step will be start forming this thing to fit in that oval shaped hole. Just kind of squash it down and start at one corner and, well, one edge and work your way around. Okay, I put the takeoff in. Like I say, you just got to kind of bend it and work with it to make it oval instead of round. And once you get it in there, bend your tabs over. I always place a few screws through and into one of the tabs to make sure it never tries to pull out. And then I painted it with mastic inside and out. So when that puppy dries, it'll be ready to go. I'll go back over here and start building the actual return box upstairs for the return grill. Okay, let's see if we can lay this one out. We're going to need we're putting a 20 by 25 return grill through the wall. So I will probably make the opening 20 1/4 by 25 1/4. I know that the front of the sheetrock back to the opening through the floor is 9 1/2 inches. So we've got to come back 9 1/2 inches through the wall back to where our box is going to be. And then it'll turn down toward the floor. I know that the opening in the floor is 14 inches deep, so that'll be another 14 inches back. So we would wind up with a 9 1/2 plus 14 inch deep box on top, which would be what, 23 1/2. I think I better check these numbers before I start cutting metal. So I know the back of this box will be 20 1/4 also. So we're 23 1/2 by 20 1/4 on top. This line will be shooting down through here, come out down here somewhere. I know that the height from the floor up to the top of the opening is 32 inches. I know this was 9 1/2. So 32 minus the 25 1/2 will be this dimension here. This dimension will be the full 20 1/4. I guess what I'll do, I know that opening, the 14 inches, starts over 3 inches on this side. You'll have the full 14 inch width. And then there's 3 1/4 inches left on this side over here. So what I'll probably do is make this thing out of, I'll make this side and the back and this side out of one piece of metal. I'll make a top and put on it here, and a L-shaped piece and put on it down here at the bottom. Okay, this is what I came up with. I'm gonna fold a little 3/8 bend around the top just to make it a little more sturdy. The cap will actually have 1 inch bends that'll come down the side and be screwed to it. I've got to stick this thing down in the floor and through the wall, so I'm probably not even going to put it completely together here. I may stick a screw or two in it just to make sure everything fits, and then that way I can actually put it in a piece at a time in the field and make sure I get it in there. Then when I get it all screwed together, I can just paint everything up right where it sets with the mastic. So I'm going to make my bends, and we'll get another shot of what it looks like after that. I just made my cross break to the wrong place. People will be seeing this until they put sheetrock over it. So I'm going to do the same thing on this side. Make it look like I meant to do that. Okay, there's the envelope. See what I was talking about? I should have cross broke it to there, and I cross broke it to that one instead. So I just did the same thing to make it symmetrical. It looks fine. It'll serve the same purpose. So I'm gonna get started on the little edge bends, which will make it a little stiffer, and then we can start measuring up and making the top and the front bottom pieces. And there's the main piece. I'll have the top, which will be a rectangle with 3 sides bent down 1 inch all the way around in order to make the connection. I'll have a front, which will be L-shaped, and it'll have a little tab that sticks down through the floor, just like this one does, 14 inches wide. And then I'll need these 2 little side end caps, or bottom caps, which will also turn down through the floor and wrap around the side here. I'll get those pieces started. And again, I'll probably just take this to the job and assemble it so I can get it through the wall and through the floor at the same time. Well, this is essentially what it'll look like, only upside down. So all these little pieces will go together out in the field after I stick it through, and then I can seal everything up. But I'll get some shots of it out there, and we'll see if it fits. Well, the first piece fits. I'm going to go upstairs and cut a couple of pieces of framing to go on either side of the opening, and we'll see if we can get that big box in. Okay, here's what it looks like upstairs, and I've taken the top off of this box that I temporarily had put on it just to transport it, and I'm going to try to set it over in there while squeezing the top together, hopefully be able to stick it through the hole there. Okay, here's what I was talking about. If I'd have put the thing together and put all the mastic and everything on it, I would have had trouble where it would have been nearly impossible to stick it down through the floor and through the wall. So now I can bend the edges in like so, then get it to go underneath, and then I can slide my top back under it, get everything squared up and put back together. Okay, and here's the little pieces I made to go on either side of the bottom. Got one in there if the camera will get enough light to see it. And the other side, just go in there and lay down like that and get screwed down. Everything will be metal. Once I get everything nailed around the perimeter sturdy and the top screwed on good, I will go get the mastic and paint up all these seams so there won't be any air leaks. But there's our return. I think it looks better than what they had before. Well, it's starting to get dark. Got the return hooked up. I'm going to wait and insulate these when I come back, because I just got to cut them 2 sides and tape them up, and it'll be easy to do my static test without the insulation in the way. I've got my thermostat wire ran both upstairs and over to the wall where the unit's going. So I haven't connected them, I just stuck them in the unit. I'll have a good day's worth of work here whenever it's ready to set the outdoor unit. So I think I'll go ahead and publish this video as it is, since it'll be a while before I come back. Nothing's going to be real special about the finish up. I'll be setting the outdoor unit, running the line set over, doing a little testing, static pressure and whatnot. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.